They say evil wears many faces, but let me tell you, Cassandra Byorg wore that crown with pride. But hold on to your seats, because we're diving deep into the twisted tale of this teenage troublemaker. A troubled teenager whose tumultuous life and sinister deeds cast a shadow over the quiet city of Lawrenceville, Georgia. Welcome to the Diary of Darkness, where we explore the darkest corners of the human psyche and unravel the mysteries that lie within. They say that to be evil, one must be profoundly immoral and wicked. If that's the technical definition, then I'm sure you'll agree that Cassandra Byorg takes the crown as an evil teenager. Without giving too much away just yet, Cassandra was a terrible teen who wouldn't take no for an answer. After being shipped off to live with her grandparents, she would repay their generosity and patience in the most disgusting of ways. But what made Cassandra so rotten to the core? How would her family deal with her terrible behavior? And what were the consequences? Please brace yourselves for the chilling tale that awaits. Welcome to the state of Georgia, folks. Here, living in the state of Georgia, in a small city named Lawrenceville, were Wendy and Randall Byorg. It seems like a nice place, to be honest. Wendy and Randall Byorg were the perfect elderly couple. They had a loving family and were well respected in their local community of Lawrenceville. Being married for multiple decades, the 63-year-olds were the perfect picture of husband and wife. Described as friendly yet quiet, they were easy to live next to, were known to help with yard work through the local neighborhoods, and volunteered at local community centers. That is why when their daughter Amanda called for help with her troubled teenage daughter, it only seemed natural for them to step in and guide her because, being blunt, she clearly needed it. What they didn't know, however, was that by accepting young Cassandra Byorg into their household, their lives would change forever. Cassandra, called Cassie for short, was born and raised in Duluth, Georgia. She lived with her mother, Amanda Sterling, and her stepfather. Although Cassandra's early life isn't well known, locals say that her childhood was unfortunately messy and tumultuous. Without a suitable father figure to guide her, Cassandra was a wild child with little to no manners. She lacked direction from either of her parents and was essentially left alone to do whatever she wanted, whenever she wanted. By the time she was 16 years old, this resulted in a terrible relationship with law enforcement, with many offenses including underage drinking, smoking weed, shoplifting, domestic assault, skipping school, and running away from home. She quickly got involved with the so-called wrong crowd, and when her mother finally had enough with her bratty behavior, it was unfortunately too late to change anything. The teenage girl had developed a selfish attitude of my way or the highway. So out of control, Amanda desperately needed help, and so she called her own parents to see if they could do anything to support her. Amanda thought that if she could get her daughter away from all the drama at home and school, then maybe she could have a fresh start and turn her life around. And so, in the year 2016, Wendy and Randall filed for custody of Cassie. As a result, she moved from Duluth to join her grandparents in Lawrenceville. But Cassie made it immediately clear that she was not happy with this arrangement. She was angry, unresponsive, and quite rude to her grandparents' demands, immediately challenging their authority. As a result, tension began to grow. But you see, Cassie's grandparents believe that deep down, she was not a bad person. She had merely been raised in an unhealthy environment. Trying to get through to their granddaughter, they outlined their rather basic expectations: no staying out late, no smoking or drinking, attend school every day, and homework must be completed on time. The bare essentials, really. I mean, I'd be laughing if I had this as a child. But of course, Cassie had no intention of changing her lifestyle or attitude. She was already used to living with her mother, where she could practically get away with almost anything without repercussions. At first, Wendy and Randall kept their peace and remained quite patient with her, trying to understand that it may take some time before she settles down. What they may have underestimated, however, was Cassie's bullheadedness and willingness to get her way by any means necessary. Once it became clear that neither party would bend the knee to each other, the slight tension turned into absolute warfare. Despite her initial enrollment at the local high school named Peachtree Ridge, her attendance would not last for long. The young Miss Byorg dropped out and refused to go to class, and without school to ground her, she began to cause more mischief in the new area of Lawrenceville. According to police records, local law enforcement had to respond to the Byorg home 31 times from 2016 through to 2017. 9 of those calls were from neighbors who often heard shouting and banging from the household, and 18 calls were made directly from Wendy and Randall, who constantly experienced their granddaughter running away. Some of those calls involved domestic disputes where Cassie became physically violent against her grandparents. Others included drinking or smoking illegally in the household, and these altercations with the law would unfortunately escalate in severity. In the winter of 2016, officers arrived at the Byorg household when Cassie's grandparents called to report that she had physically assaulted Wendy. According to official reports, Wendy told the officers that she and Cassie were arguing after she had been caught drinking again. After being told to watch her language, Cassie grabbed a glass full of water and threw it at her grandmother, narrowly missing her as it smashed into pieces against the wall behind her. Her actions were seriously concerning. This outburst was uncalled for, and she could have severely injured her grandmother.
Mother there?
Yeah, he started going at it, and then, I could hear my grandpa just yelling, them fighting, and then I started getting the rush, and then, that's when I started hitting my grandma. She started, screaming and stuff, and...
Was that the first hit?
Yeah.
The back of the head?
Yeah. She bit me.
I think I took a picture of that yesterday, right?
Yeah, she bit me in my finger too, but I forgot which finger. It was on my right hand. I think it was either my middle finger or it was that one.
When you guys...
By doing so, when the responding officers spoke to the two, it became quite clear that Cassie didn't care. While Wendy tried to explain the situation as calmly as possible, Cassie continuously interrupted. She simultaneously insulted her and the other officers and was generally just being rude. While nothing legally came of this, Cassie's lousy behavior was obviously taking a toll on her grandparents. Put yourself in their shoes for just a moment here. They were trying to guide their granddaughter with as much love and support as possible, but all they received back instead was pure rudeness and aggression. Cassie's utter disdain for any authority made it exceedingly difficult for Wendy and Randall to coexist with her. As mentioned before, she was notorious for running away from home, and it wasn't uncommon for her to sneak out at night and be gone for multiple days at a time. Whenever she disappeared, Wendy would often take to Facebook asking for help and to create missing posters to spread the word. April 1st, 2017 was unfortunately no different. Once again, Cassie decided to put her grandparents through a lot of emotional turmoil, and once again, Wendy went to Facebook, desperate for help. But unknown to her and everyone else at the time, this would actually be the last time she would ever post on Facebook, because a few hours later, she fell silent. Her last text message read, "I'm going to bed soon. Maybe tomorrow will be better. All I can do is hope for the best and expect the worst." This message held a terribly large amount of dark irony, because after it was sent, no one would ever hear from her again, which was very unusual because she always kept people up to date. As the days passed, peripheral members of the family began to grow worried. You see, Wendy and Randall were not replying to any of their messages or phone calls, and so welfare check was requested. When officers arrived at the house, they instantly sensed that something was amiss. Despite knocking on the door several times, no one answered it. Now officers decided to wait an extra day before any intervention, but when they did return the following day, they received no answer at the door. On April 8th, a seemingly unrelated call came over the radio. Nearby in the town of Lawrenceville, a domestic assault was reported from one of the homes in the area. However, by the time responding officers arrived, the attackers had already fled the scene. But those assailants were identified immediately and perhaps unsurprisingly. That included Cassandra Byorg and her 19-year-old boyfriend, Johnny Ryder. They had unlawfully entered the home of Johnny's sister and her boyfriend, and sadly, their crimes would not stop there. Johnny's sister and her boyfriend returned home earlier at evening to find the house in complete disarray. The bedroom was torn to pieces, with several items missing and furniture damaged beyond repair. And standing in the middle of the bedroom, smirking, was Cassie Byorg and her boyfriend, Johnny. An altercation broke out between the two couples, with Johnny pepper spraying his sister in the face, sending her to her knees. He then began to beat her boyfriend in the face, while Cassie went to grab a baseball bat. She followed up by beating Johnny's sister over the head, neck, and shoulders, leaving both of them fighting for their lives on the ground. Cassie and Johnny then fled the scene, taking his sister's car in the process. Both victims sustained severe injuries from the attack and, after speaking to the police, were escorted to the hospital immediately. In the meantime, detectives started looking into the crime scene. While there, they realized that the car that Johnny and Cassie had arrived in was not actually theirs. In fact, it belonged to Wendy and Randall, who had been missing for several days. And as the investigation unfolded, the truth behind Cassandra Byorg's sinister descent into darkness began to emerge, revealing a tale of tragedy, betrayal, and unspeakable horror. As officers revisited the scene, they were met with an overwhelming stench of decay that filled the air. Breaking down the door, they ascended the stairs to find the source of the smell growing stronger with each step. Upon entering the master bedroom, they were met with a grisly sight. Wendy and Randall lay lifeless on the floor, victims of a violent and brutal attack. Stab wounds adorned their bodies, and signs of blunt force trauma marred their heads. The eerie silence that had puzzled officers before now made chilling sense. The news sent shockwaves through the tight-knit community of Lawrenceville. Neighbors couldn't comprehend how the beloved couple they knew could meet such a gruesome end. Suspicions naturally fell on Johnny and Cassie, especially with Wendy and Randall's car found at Johnny's sister's house. A task force was quickly mobilized to track them down. The following morning, they were located in a nearby apartment complex, barricaded inside a friend's apartment. Refusing to surrender, Johnny and Cassie engaged in a tense standoff with law enforcement. Negotiations failed, prompting officers to deploy a remote-controlled robot to gather intel. It became apparent that the teens were injured, having attempted ending themselves by cutting their wrists. Despite their attempts to evade capture, they were apprehended and given medical attention. Following their arrest, they turned on each other, each blaming the other for the murders. Under interrogation, Cassie confessed to the chilling details of their plan.
Hold on, did you guys have anything in your hands, or you just...
Yeah, I had, what's it called? It's one of those car tools.
Is it to do a tire, or
yeah,
is it
tire
to fix
iron.
it?
It was a tire iron. So I had one of those.
Where'd you get that at?
Johnny's car.
Okay.
He had one in his car.
His Honda or whatever.
And Johnny just used his fist, and he brought a black book bag that had duct tape in it, and it had the tire iron in it, and it had gloves in it, because we were also wearing gloves too.
What kind of gloves?
They were like
hospital gloves,
yeah,
or regular?
like hospital
Oh, okay.
gloves.
What color were they, you remember?
Blue
Okay.
ish, yeah, they were blue.
Hold on, did you guys have anything in your hands, or you just...
Yeah, I had what's it called? It's one of those car tools.
Is it to do a tire, or
yeah,
is it to
tire
fix
iron.
it?
It was a
Okay.
tire iron. So I had one of those.
Where'd you get that at?
Johnny's car.
Okay.
He had one in his car.
His Honda or whatever.
And Johnny just used his fist, and he brought a black book bag that had duct tape in it, and it had the tire iron in it, and it had gloves in it, because we were also wearing gloves too.
What kind of gloves?
They were like
hospital gloves,
yeah,
or regular?
hospital
Oh, okay.
gloves.
Fed up with her grandparents' control, she and Johnny had plotted their deaths. Armed with weapons, they crept into the house under cover of darkness and launched a vicious attack. The elderly couple became victims of their callous scheme. Their actions didn't end there. They callously arranged the bodies and attempted to cover up the crime. Both were sentenced to life in prison, with Johnny expressing remorse, while Cassie remained silent, offering little solace to a shattered community.